My name is Margaret Thompson. I'm 32 years old, and I never thought I'd be sitting in a Dallas County courtroom facing my own family across the aisle. My parents, my brother, and my sister were suing me for every single dollar I had saved over 8 years of working as an accountant. $180,000. They claimed it was theirs. But when my lawyer stood up with an FBI document in her hand, everything changed. The judge's face went white as she read it, and then she said the words that still give me chills. "Lock the doors. Nobody leaves this courtroom." Before I tell you what happened in that courtroom, let me know where you're watching from, hit that like button, and subscribe for more incredible true stories. Trust me, you won't believe what that FBI document revealed about my own family. Growing up in Fort Worth, Texas, I thought I had the perfect family. My dad, Harold, was 58, a retired construction supervisor with calloused hands and a warm smile. My mom, Dolores, was 55, a former school secretary who made the best apple pie in the neighborhood. My older brother, Bruce, was 35, married with 2 kids working as a car salesman at a Ford dealership. My younger sister, Beverly, was 29, single, and worked part-time at a local boutique while going to community college. I was the middle child, the responsible one. While Bruce was out partying in high school, and Beverly was dating different guys every month I was studying. I graduated summa cum laude from University of Texas at Arlington with a degree in accounting. I landed a job at Pinnacle Insurance right after graduation, starting at $42,000 a year. By the time I was 32, I was making $65,000 annually as a senior accountant. I lived in a small one-bedroom apartment in Oak Lawn, a modest neighborhood about 15 minutes from downtown Dallas. My apartment was on the second floor of a brown brick building built in the 1970s. The rent was $850 a month, which was reasonable for the area. I drove a used Honda Civic that I bought with cash when I was 26. No car payments, no credit card debt, just my student loans, which I paid off early. Every morning I packed my lunch, usually a turkey sandwich, an apple, and a bottle of water. I brought coffee in a thermos instead of buying it at the office. While my coworkers went out for lunch at restaurants that cost $15 to $20, I ate at my desk and saved every penny. I shopped at discount stores, bought generic brands, and never went on expensive vacations. My 401k contributions were maxed out every year. I had a separate savings account where I put away at least $1,000 every month, sometimes more. By my 32nd birthday, I had accumulated $180,000 in total savings and investments. I was proud of that number. It represented disciplined sacrifice and planning for the future. My family always seemed proud of me too. At family gatherings, my dad would brag to his friends about his daughter, the accountant. "Margaret's the smart one," he'd say, patting my shoulder. "She's going to be rich someday." My mom would nod and add, "She's always been responsible with money, even as a little girl." I helped them financially whenever they needed it. When my mom had to go to the emergency room for chest pains 3 years ago, I paid the $8,000 hospital bill without hesitation. When Bruce needed money for a down payment on a newer car for his family, I lent him $12,000. When Beverly wanted to take some college courses but couldn't afford them, I covered her $15,000 tuition. I never asked for the money back. They were my family. I figured when they could afford it, they'd pay me back, but I didn't pressure them. Money wasn't more important than family relationships. Our Sunday dinners at my parents' house in Fort Worth were a tradition. Every week we'd gather around the dining room table and my mom would cook a big meal. Pot roast mashed potatoes, green beans, and homemade rolls. We'd talk about our week's share stories and laugh together. Those dinners made me feel connected, loved, and secure. But about 6 months ago, something started to change. The questions began innocently enough. It started with a phone call from my dad on a Tuesday evening in March. I was at home going through my monthly budget spreadsheet when my phone rang. "Hey, sweetheart," my dad said. "I hope I'm not interrupting anything important." "Not at all, Dad. Just working on some financial stuff. What's up?" "Well, that's actually what I wanted to talk to you about. Your mother and I have been thinking about family financial planning. Making sure we're all set for the future. I thought that sounded reasonable. That's smart, Dad. Are you thinking about retirement planning? Something like that. I was wondering if you could tell me about your savings situation. You know how much you have set aside, what kind of accounts you're using. The question caught me off guard. We'd never discussed my personal finances in detail before. Why do you need to know that? Just for planning purposes, honey. We want to make sure the whole family is financially secure. Maybe there are some strategies we could implement together. I gave him some general information. I mentioned that I had a good amount saved, that I was maxing out my 401k, and that I was doing well financially. But I didn't give him specific numbers. Something about the conversation felt odd, but I couldn't put my finger on what. A week later, my mom called with her own set of questions. Margaret, sweetie, I've been thinking about wills and inheritance planning. Do you have a will? Do you have life insurance? Mom, I'm only 32. I don't really need to worry about that stuff yet. Oh, but you do. You never know what might happen. And with all the money you've saved, you need to make sure it's protected. Who would get your money if something happened to you? The conversation made me uncomfortable. My mom had never shown interest in estate planning before. She kept pressing for details about my beneficiaries, my insurance policies, and my investment accounts. Then Bruce started acting differently during our family dinners. Instead of his usual jokes and stories about car sales, he'd steer conversations toward money. Margaret, you're really smart with investments. What would you do if you had, say, $50,000 to invest? Or, I heard some people are putting money in trust funds. Do you know anything about that? His wife Rachel seemed uncomfortable during these conversations. She'd change the subject, or suggest that the kids go play in the backyard. Later I realized she probably sensed something was wrong before I did. Beverly became unusually interested in spending time with me. She started inviting me to lunch, something she'd rarely done before. During these lunches, she'd ask about my job, my income, and my future plans. Do you ever think about buying a house? You could probably afford a really nice place. How much do you think you could put down? One afternoon in April. Beverly suggested we go shopping at North Park Center. As we walked through the mall, she pointed out expensive stores and asked if I ever shopped there. You could totally afford to shop at these places, Margaret. You work so hard, you should treat yourself. When I explained that I preferred to save my money rather than spend it on expensive clothes, she seemed frustrated. But what's the point of having money if you don't enjoy it? You're 32 and you live like you're broke. The conversation bothered me. My family had always respected my frugal lifestyle before. Why were they suddenly questioning my financial choices? The most unsettling conversation happened in early May during a family barbecue at my parents' house. I was helping my dad grill burgers when he brought up the subject again. Margaret, I've been doing some research on family trusts and financial partnerships. There are some real advantages to pooling family resources. What do you mean? Well, if we combined our money, we could make bigger investments get better returns, and it would protect everyone in case of emergencies. I stopped turning the burgers and looked at him. Dad, are you asking me to put my savings into some kind of family account? Not exactly, but maybe we could set up a trust where everyone contributes according to their ability. You'd still have access to your money, but we'd all benefit from better investment opportunities. The idea made me nervous. I think I'm doing fine managing my own money, Dad. His expression changed. For just a moment, I saw something in his eyes that I'd never seen before. Angered disappointment. It was gone so quickly that I almost thought I'd imagined it. Of course, sweetheart. I'm just trying to look out for the whole family. But the conversation left me feeling uneasy. That night I called my friend Janet from work and told her about the recent conversations with my family. Margaret, that sounds really weird, Janet said. Why are they suddenly so interested in your money? I don't know. Maybe they're having financial problems and don't want to tell me. Or maybe they're planning something. You need to be careful. I didn't want to believe that my family would try to take advantage of me, but the seed of doubt had been planted. The pressure intensified dramatically in June. My dad called me on a Saturday morning and asked me to come to the house immediately. "We need to have a family meeting. It's urgent." When I arrived, the whole family was gathered in the living room. The atmosphere was tense. My mom was wringing her hands. Bruce was pacing by the window, and Beverly was sitting on the couch looking agitated. "Sit down, Margaret," my dad said in a voice I'd never heard him use before. It was cold, authoritative. "What's this about?" "This is about your selfishness and your complete disregard for your family." I was shocked. "What are you talking about?" My mom started crying. "Margaret, I've been to the doctor. My heart condition is worse than we thought. I need surgery, and it's going to cost a lot of money. The insurance won't cover everything. Mom, if you need help with medical bills, you know I'll help you." "We need more than help," Bruce interjected. "We need you to step up and take responsibility for this family." "What does that mean?" My dad leaned forward in his chair. "It means we need you to transfer $100,000 into a family account so we can handle this medical emergency and other family expenses." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "You want me to give you $100,000? "Not give," my mom said. "It would still be family money, but we need it accessible for emergencies. That's more than half of everything I've saved over 8 years." Bruce stopped pacing and faced me. "Margaret, we raised you. We fed you, clothed, you sent you to college. That money you saved it because we gave you a foundation to build on. I worked for that money. I paid for my own college with student loans and part-time jobs." "But you lived here rent-free during college," my dad said. "You ate our food, used our utilities. We figure we're owed at least $100,000 for all the support we gave you over the years." Beverly finally spoke up. "Everyone else your age is helping support their parents. You're the only one in this family who's ever made decent money, and you act like it's all yours." I felt like I was in a nightmare. These were the people who had raised me, who had told me they were proud of my success. Now they were calling me selfish and claiming they were entitled to my life savings. "I've helped you plenty of times," I said. "I paid Mom's hospital bill, I gave Bruce money for his car, I paid for Beverly's college courses." "That was just paying back what we were owed," my dad said. "This is about stepping up for your family when we really need you." The argument continued for 2 hours. They took turns pressuring me, guilting me, and eventually threatening me. "If you don't help us, then maybe we need to reconsider whether you're really part of this family," Bruce said. My mom stopped crying long enough to add, "I raised you better than this, Margaret. I never thought you'd abandon your family when we needed you most." Beverly was the cruelest. "You're pathetic, Margaret. You live in that tiny apartment, drive that old car, and hoard money like some kind of miser. What's the point of having money if you won't even help your own family?" I tried to explain that $100,000 was a huge amount of money for me, that it represented years of sacrifice and discipline. I tried to suggest alternatives like helping with specific bills or finding other ways to address their financial needs. But they weren't interested in compromise. It was all or nothing. Finally, I stood up. "I need time to think about this." "There's nothing to think about," my dad said. "Either you're part of this family or you're not." I walked toward the door and Bruce grabbed my arm. "Where are you going?" "Home." I said I need time to think. "You have until Monday to decide," my dad called after me. "If you don't transfer that money by Monday, then don't bother coming around here anymore." I drove home in tears. I'd never felt so alone in my life. The people I loved most in the world had just threatened to disown me if I didn't give them my life savings. That weekend was the longest of my life. I kept thinking there had to be some misunderstanding, some explanation for their behavior. Maybe my mom really was sick, and they were just desperate. Maybe they were in financial trouble and too proud to ask for help in a normal way. But the more I thought about it, the more wrong it felt. They weren't asking for help with a specific problem. They were demanding access to my money with vague explanations about family emergencies and obligations. On Monday morning, I called my dad. "Have you made your decision?" he asked without any greeting. I've decided that I can't transfer that much money to a family account, but I'm willing to help with specific expenses if you show me the bills." The line was quiet for a long moment. Then my dad said, "I'm disappointed in you, Margaret. You've chosen money over family." "That's not true. I just think there has to be a better way to handle this. There is no other way. And since you've made your choice, don't expect to hear from us again." He hung up. For the next 3 months, my family cut off all contact with me. No phone calls, no text messages, no invitations to Sunday dinner. It was like I'd been erased from their lives. I was heartbroken, but I was also relieved. The pressure was gone, and I could think clearly again. I started to realize that their demands had been unreasonable from the beginning. What family demands access to their adult child's entire life savings? What parents threaten to disown their daughter for not handing over money? I thought the worst was over. I had no idea that they were just getting started. On September 15th, I was at work reviewing insurance claims when our receptionist brought me an envelope marked "Urgent, Personal Delivery." Inside was a summons to appear in Dallas County Court. I read the document 3 times before the words sank in. My family was suing me. All of them. Harold Thompson, Dolores Thompson, Bruce Thompson, and Beverly Thompson versus Margaret Thompson. The lawsuit claimed that I had misappropriated family funds and was unlawfully withholding money that rightfully belongs to the Thompson Family Trust. They were seeking $180,000 in damages, which was essentially every penny I had saved. According to the court documents, they claimed that my parents had given me $50,000 when I was 24 to invest on behalf of the family. They said Bruce had loaned me $30,000 3 years ago to help with a house down payment. They claimed Beverly had entrusted me with $25,000 for her education expenses, and I had diverted the money to my personal accounts. None of it was true. The dates they mentioned, the transactions they described, the agreements they referenced, all of it was completely fabricated. But they had documentation. Copies of checks, signed agreements, email conversations. I didn't understand how they could have evidence of things that never happened. I called in sick to work and spent the day trying to process what was happening. My family wasn't just demanding my money anymore. They were willing to lie, to commit fraud, to destroy my reputation and my financial security to get it. I found a lawyer through the State Bar Association. Janet Morrison was 45 years old, a partner at Morrison & Associates, with 20 years of experience in civil litigation. Her office was in a high-rise building in downtown Dallas, and her consultation fee was $300 an hour. "This is a complex case," Janet said after reviewing the lawsuit. "Your family has created what appears to be a paper trail of financial transactions. Some of these documents look quite convincing. But none of it happened. I never received $50,000 from my parents. I never borrowed money from Bruce. Beverly never gave me money for school. I believe you, but we need to prove it. Do you have bank records from the time periods they're claiming these transactions occurred?" "Yes, I keep meticulous financial records." "Good. We'll need everything. Bank statements, tax returns, email records, text messages. Anything that can establish the true timeline of your financial history." Janet explained that even if we proved the lawsuit was frivolous, defending it would be expensive. Her retainer was $15,000, and the total cost could easily exceed $30,000 if the case went to trial. "What if I just settle with them, give them some money to make this go away?" "Margaret, if you pay them anything, you're essentially admitting that their claims have merit. That could open you up to additional lawsuits or even criminal charges for fraud. Plus, there's no guarantee they'd stop with one payment." I left Janet's office feeling overwhelmed. Just defending myself against my family's lies was going to cost me a significant portion of my savings. Even if I won, I'd lose. The next few weeks were a blur of document gathering and legal preparation. I pulled 8 years of bank statements, credit card records, tax returns, and investment account statements. The evidence clearly showed that I had never received the large cash deposits my family was claiming. But their documentation was sophisticated. They had bank records showing transfers, signed loan agreements with my apparent signature, and email chains discussing the financial arrangements. I didn't understand how they could have created such convincing fake evidence. The stress was affecting my work, my sleep, and my health. I lost 10 pounds and developed stress headaches that lasted for days. My coworkers started asking if I was okay, but I was too embarrassed to tell them that my family was suing me for money I'd never taken. 3 days before the trial, Janet called me with disturbing news. "Margaret, I need to prepare you for the possibility that we might lose this case. Your family's lawyer has presented their evidence to the court, and it's very convincing. Without additional evidence to contradict their claims, the judge might rule in their favor." "But it's all lies." "I know that and you know that, but proving it in court is different. We have your bank records showing that you saved this money legitimately, but they have documents suggesting that some of this money originally came from family sources." I hung up the phone and cried for 2 hours. I was about to lose everything I'd worked for because my family was willing to lie and cheat to steal from me. The night before the trial, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about how we'd gotten to this point. How had the people who raised me, who claimed to love me, become willing to destroy my life for money? I had no idea that the next day would bring answers I never could have imagined. Dallas County Courthouse is an imposing building with tall columns and marble floors that echo every footstep. I arrived at 8:30 a.m. for a 9 o'clock hearing, wearing my best navy blue suit and carrying a briefcase full of financial documents. The courtroom was smaller than I'd expected, with dark wood paneling and fluorescent lights that made everyone look pale. Judge Patricia Collins was a stern-looking woman in her early 60s, with gray hair pulled back in a tight bun. My family was already seated at the plaintiff's table with their lawyer Lawson Burke. Burke was about 50 years old, wearing an expensive-looking suit and projecting confidence. He'd obviously done this before. Seeing my family across the courtroom was surreal. My dad was wearing the same navy suit he'd worn to my college graduation. My mom had on a floral dress and looked frail and sad. Bruce was fidgeting with his tie, and Beverly was staring straight ahead, avoiding eye contact with me. These were the people who had raised me, who had celebrated my birthdays, who had cheered at my high school graduation. Now we were adversaries in a legal battle over money. Judge Collins called the court to order, and Lawson Burke began presenting my family's case. "Your Honor, this is a straightforward case of financial betrayal within a family. The defendant, Margaret Thompson, has unlawfully retained money that belongs to her family members." Burke's presentation was polished and convincing. He displayed bank records on a large screen showing transfers of money to accounts in my name. He presented signed loan agreements and investment contracts that appeared to bear my signature. When my dad took the witness stand, he was completely different from the man I'd known my whole life. Gone was the warm, supportive father. In his place was a cold, calculating person who spoke in precise legal language. "We gave Margaret $50,000 in January of 2016 to invest on behalf of the family," my dad testified. "She agreed to manage the money and provide us with returns on the investment. Instead, she kept all the money for herself." He presented what looked like a legitimate investment agreement with my signature on it. The document outlined terms for managing family funds and specified that I would serve as the family's financial representative. I whispered to Janet, "I never signed that document. I've never seen it before in my life." Janet made notes but looked concerned. My mom's testimony was heartbreaking to watch. She spoke in a weak voice about trusting her daughter with the family's financial future. "Margaret always said she was good with money," my mom said, dabbing her eyes with a tissue. "We thought she would help secure our retirement. Instead, she took advantage of our trust. She claimed that the $50,000 represented their entire savings for retirement and that my betrayal had left them financially devastated." Bruce's testimony was even more damaging. He presented evidence of what appeared to be a $30,000 loan he'd made to me for a house down payment. "I gave Margaret $30,000 in cash in March of 2021. Bruce said. She said she needed it for a down payment on a house. She promised to pay me back within 2 years. He had text message printouts showing conversations where I allegedly thanked him for the loan and promised to repay it. The messages looked authentic, complete with timestamps and my phone number. Janet whispered, "Did you ever text your brother about borrowing money?" "Never. I've never borrowed money from him in my life." But the evidence looked convincing. The text messages were in a format consistent with iPhone messaging, and they contained personal details that would have been difficult for someone else to fabricate. Beverly's testimony was the most painful. She claimed that she had given me $25,000 for educational expenses and that I had stolen the money for my personal use. "I trusted my sister completely," Beverly said. "I worked double shifts at my job to save that money for college. When I gave it to Margaret to manage, I thought she would help me build a better future. Instead, she kept it all." The evidence against me was overwhelming. My family had created a complete alternate history of our financial relationship, supported by documents, bank records, and electronic communications that looked entirely legitimate. When it was time for our defense, Janet presented my bank records showing the actual sources of my savings. We demonstrated that my money had come from salary deposits, investment returns, and careful budgeting over 8 years. But Burke was ready for our defense. During cross-examination, he suggested that I had laundered the family money through my own accounts to make it appear as if I'd earned it myself. "Isn't it convenient, Miss Thompson, that your bank records don't show any large deposits from your family members? Almost as if you were trying to hide the true source of these funds." I wanted to scream that I hadn't hidden anything, that the money was legitimately mine, that my family was lying. But Burke made it sound like my careful record-keeping was actually evidence of deception. By lunch break, I was convinced we were going to lose. The judge seemed to be taking my family's claims seriously, and their evidence was much more compelling than our simple bank statements. Janet tried to reassure me during lunch, but I could see the worry in her eyes. "We still have the afternoon to present our case," she said. "Something might come up." But I had given up hope. I was about to lose everything because my family had outmaneuvered me with sophisticated fraud. When court resumed at 2 o'clock, I was prepared for the worst. I had no idea that everything was about to change. At 2:15 p.m., just as Judge Collins was asking for closing arguments, Janet stood up abruptly. "Your Honor, I have new evidence that I believe is crucial to this case." Judge Collins looked annoyed. "Ms. Morrison, you should have presented all evidence during the discovery phase." "This evidence just became available this morning, Your Honor. I request permission to present it to the court." Burke objected immediately. "Your Honor, this is clearly a delay tactic. The defense has had months to prepare their case." "Your Honor," Janet said, "this evidence directly relates to the credibility of the plaintiffs and the authenticity of the documents they've presented. I believe the court needs to see this before making a decision." Judge Collins considered for a moment. "You have 5 minutes, Ms. Morrison." Janet opened her briefcase and pulled out a thick manila folder. "Your Honor, this morning, I received the results of an FBI investigation into financial fraud activities involving the Thompson family." The courtroom went dead silent. I saw my dad's face go pale, and my mom grabbed Bruce's arm. "The Federal Bureau of Investigation has been investigating Harold Thompson, Dolores Thompson, Bruce Thompson, and Beverly Thompson for wire fraud, conspiracy, and forgery in connection with multiple schemes to defraud family members and acquaintances of their savings." Janet handed a document to the bailiff, who delivered it to Judge Collins. As the judge read, her face went completely white. "According to this FBI report, the Thompson family has been operating a sophisticated fraud scheme for the past 3 years. They have successfully stolen over $850,000 from 12 different victims using forged documents, fake loan agreements, and fabricated financial transactions." My heart was pounding so hard, I thought everyone in the courtroom could hear it. Janet continued, The investigation reveals that Harold Thompson has previous convictions for forgery and fraud from 1998. Bruce Thompson was arrested in 2019 for creating fake legal documents. Beverly Thompson has been identified as a specialist in forging signatures and creating fake electronic communications. Judge Collins looked up from the document with an expression I'd never seen on a judge's face before: pure shock and anger. The FBI report specifically identifies this lawsuit against Margaret Thompson as part of their ongoing criminal enterprise. They have documented evidence that all of the financial documents presented by the plaintiffs in this case are forgeries. At that moment, a man in a dark suit stood up from the back of the courtroom. "Your Honor, I'm Special Agent Thomas Richardson with the Federal Bureau of Investigation. I have arrest warrants for Harold Thompson, Dolores Thompson, Bruce Thompson, and Beverly Thompson." Judge Collins stood up slowly. Her voice was shaking with anger. "Bailiff, lock the doors. Nobody leaves this courtroom." The bailiff immediately moved to secure the courtroom doors. The sound of the locks clicking seemed to echo forever. Agent Richardson walked down the center aisle carrying a briefcase. "Your Honor, the Thompson family is part of what we call a family fraud ring. They specifically target successful family members with carefully planned psychological manipulation, followed by fraudulent legal action." He opened his briefcase and pulled out several evidence bags. "We have audio recordings of the defendants planning this specific fraud against Margaret Thompson. We have computer forensic evidence showing how they created the fake documents presented in this case. We have surveillance footage of Bruce Thompson using equipment to forge Margaret's signature." My dad tried to stand up, but Agent Richardson held up his hand. "Mr. Thompson, please remain seated." "The FBI has been investigating this family for 8 months," Agent Richardson continued. "Margaret Thompson is the 13th victim we've identified. The previous 12 victims have lost a combined total of $850,000 to similar schemes." Judge Collins was reading through the FBI documents with increasing anger. "Mr. Burke, were you aware that your clients were under federal investigation?" Burke looked genuinely shocked. "No, Your Honor. I had no knowledge of any investigation." Agent Richardson addressed the court. "Your Honor, we have evidence that shows exactly how this fraud was perpetrated against Miss Thompson." He set up a laptop computer and connected it to the courtroom's display system. On the screen appeared a series of photographs showing Bruce in what looked like a garage working with computer equipment and document scanners. This surveillance footage was taken 6 weeks ago. As you can see, Bruce Thompson is using specialized software to create fake bank documents and forged signatures. The next image showed Beverly at a computer working with what appeared to be text messaging software. Beverly Thompson specialized in creating fake electronic communications. She would recreate entire text message conversations and email chains to support the family's fraudulent claims. Agent Richardson played an audio recording. My dad's voice filled the courtroom. "We need to be careful with the Margaret thing. She's smarter than the other ones. Make sure those bank documents look perfect." My mom's voice responded, "Don't worry. Beverly knows what she's doing with the signatures. Margaret will never be able to prove those documents are fake." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. While I had been agonizing over their demands for money, they had been coldly planning to destroy my financial life. Judge Collins was now standing, her face red with anger. In 25 years on the bench, I have never seen such a calculated and heartless fraud perpetrated within a family. She looked directly at my parents. "Mr. and Mrs. Thompson, you have not only committed serious federal crimes, but you have betrayed the most fundamental trust that should exist between parents and children." Agent Richardson continued his presentation. "The Thompson family has perfected a method of psychological manipulation followed by legal intimidation. They identify family members or close friends who have accumulated savings, then create artificial family emergencies to justify demanding access to those funds." He showed another document on the screen. When the victims refuse to voluntarily turn over their money, the family creates fraudulent legal cases using forged documents and fake evidence. In most cases, the victims settle out of court, rather than face expensive legal battles. Margaret Thompson is the first victim who chose to fight the fraudulent lawsuit all the way to trial. Her decision to resist has allowed us to gather enough evidence to prosecute the entire family. Judge Collins turned to my family's table. Harold Thompson, Dolores Thompson, Bruce Thompson, and Beverly Thompson. You are all under arrest for wire fraud, conspiracy, forgery, and perjury. 4 FBI agents, who had been waiting outside the courtroom, entered and began placing my family in handcuffs. My dad tried to speak. Your Honor, this is all a misunderstanding. The only misunderstanding, Judge Collins replied, is how you thought you could get away with this in my courtroom. As they were being led away, my mom started crying. Margaret, please tell them this is all a mistake. For a moment, I almost felt sorry for her. Then I remembered the months of psychological torture, the threats, the coldly calculated lies they had told about me in court. I said nothing. Judge Collins dismissed all charges against me and ordered that my legal fees be paid from any assets recovered during the federal investigation. Ms. Thompson, I want to personally apologize for what you've endured. No one should have to face this kind of betrayal from their own family. As I left the courthouse that day, I felt a mixture of relief, vindication, and profound sadness. I had won, but I had also lost my entire family in the process. The aftermath of that day in court was both liberating and devastating. Within a week, the full scope of my family's crimes became clear through news reports and FBI press releases. Harold and Dolores were each sentenced to 8 and 6 years in federal prison, respectively, for wire fraud and conspiracy. Bruce received 10 years due to his previous criminal record and his role as the family's document forger. Beverly got 4 years for aiding and abetting the fraud scheme. The FBI investigation revealed that their crimes had been escalating for 3 years. They had started by targeting distant relatives and family friends, then gradually moved on to bigger victims with more money to steal. I was supposed to be their biggest score yet. The investigation also uncovered the sophisticated methods they used. Bruce had purchased professional-grade document scanning and printing equipment. Beverly had taken online courses in digital forensics and electronic communication manipulation. My parents had studied psychology and persuasion techniques to perfect their manipulation strategies. They had practiced their story about my mom's heart condition for weeks before confronting me. The family meeting where they demanded $100,000 had been rehearsed like a stage play. Even their decision to cut off contact with me for 3 months was calculated to increase my emotional vulnerability before they filed the lawsuit. The most disturbing revelation was that they had been planning to target me for over a year. FBI agents found notebooks in my parents' house with detailed financial information about me, including copies of my bank statements that they had somehow obtained illegally. They knew exactly how much money I had saved, where I kept it, and what my financial habits were. The whole time I thought I was helping family members in need, they were gathering intelligence for their eventual attack on my savings. The court awarded me $50,000 in restitution, though the FBI warned that recovering the full amount would be difficult since my family had already spent most of the money they'd stolen from previous victims. The first few weeks after the trial were emotionally chaotic. I felt vindicated and relieved that the truth had come out, but I also felt grief over losing my entire family. Even though they had betrayed me, they were still the people who had raised me and shared 32 years of my life. I started seeing a therapist named Dr. Sarah Martinez, who specialized in helping victims of family fraud. She explained that what I was experiencing was a form of complex grief. You're not just grieving the loss of your family, Dr. Martinez said. You're grieving the loss of your entire understanding of who they were and what your relationships meant. The therapy helped me understand that my family's betrayal was not a reflection of my worth or judgment. They were skilled criminals who had fooled not just me but 12 other victims, and initially even the court system. Slowly, I began to rebuild my life without them. I changed my phone number and moved to a new apartment in uptown Dallas, a nicer neighborhood that I could finally afford without feeling guilty about spending money. My coworkers at Pinnacle Insurance were incredibly supportive. When the story hit the local news, my boss Clara told me to take as much time off as I needed. My colleagues brought me meals and checked on me regularly during the most difficult weeks. I also connected with other victims of my family's crimes through a support group organized by the FBI's Victim Services Department. Meeting other people who had experienced similar betrayals helped me realize that I wasn't alone and that recovery was possible. One of the other victims, a woman named Linda, whose brother had stolen $60,000 from her retirement fund, became a close friend. She helped me understand that healing didn't mean forgetting what happened, but rather learning to trust my own judgment again. 3 months after the trial, I met Dennis at a coffee shop near my office. He was a software engineer, 34 years old, with kind eyes and a gentle sense of humor. We started dating slowly, and I was honest with him about what I had been through. "I understand why you might have trust issues," Dennis said during one of our early conversations. "But I hope you know that not all families are like yours, and not all people are capable of that kind of deception." Dennis introduced me to his family, and experiencing their genuine warmth and support helped me remember what healthy family relationships looked like. His parents were kind, supportive people who respected boundaries and would never dream of demanding access to their adult children's finances. 6 months after the trial, I received a promotion at work to senior financial analyst, with a salary increase to $78,000 per year. For the first time in my life, I allowed myself to enjoy some of my financial success. I bought a few nice outfits, went on a vacation to Colorado, and even purchased a newer car. I also started volunteering with a nonprofit organization that helps victims of financial fraud. Sharing my story and helping other people navigate the legal and emotional challenges of family betrayal gave my experience meaning and purpose. 1 year after the trial, I realized that I had stopped having nightmares about the courtroom confrontation. I had stopped checking my bank accounts obsessively every day. I had learned to trust Dennis and his family, and I had built new friendships based on honesty and mutual respect. The most important lesson I learned was that family is not automatically defined by blood relationships. True family members support each other, respect each other's boundaries, and would never intentionally cause harm for personal gain. Dennis and I are now planning to move in together, and we've talked about marriage and starting our own family someday. I'm no longer afraid of being financially successful or worried that people will try to take advantage of me. I learned to recognize the warning signs of manipulation and to trust my instincts when something feels wrong. Most importantly, I learned that my worth as a person is not determined by how others treat me, even if those others are the people who raised me. My biological family chose money over love, lies over truth, and crime over integrity. But I have built a new family of people who choose differently. And that family, the one I chose, and that chose me back, has given me something my biological family never could. Unconditional love without strings attached. Looking back, I can honestly say that losing the wrong people was the best thing that ever happened to me. It made room for the right people to enter my life. And it taught me that sometimes the greatest gift you can give yourself is the courage to walk away from people who don't deserve to be in your life, even when those people share your DNA. I learned that family isn't always about blood. Sometimes the family you choose loves you better than the one you were born into. And sometimes losing the wrong people is the best thing that ever happened to you. Have you ever experienced betrayal from someone you trusted completely? How did you rebuild your life after discovering that someone close to you wasn't who you thought they were? Share your story in the comments below. If this story resonated with you, please hit the like button and subscribe for more true stories about overcoming life's biggest challenges. And don't forget to share this video with someone who might need to hear that they're not alone in facing family betrayal. Remember, your worth isn't defined by how others treat you, and sometimes the strongest thing you can do is choose to protect yourself from people who don't have your best interests at heart. Thank you for listening to my story, and I hope it helps you trust your own instincts and value your own worth. Stay strong and remember that better days and better people are always possible.